For those of you that do not know who I am, my name is Samson Pruitt. I am the owner and co-founder of Slither Incorporated. I have a lot of people who are always asking me to do videos about general care and maintenance and breeding and all of the different aspects of reticulated pythons and reticulated python keeping. The problem is, as I have a multi-hundred reticulated python collection, I am always really busy, and it's really difficult to take the time to make videos. That is why I decided that as I drive around the country doing these trade shows, I spend a lot of time in the car, giving me the ability to do the videos in the car. So here we go, video number 1. I posted in the Slither group asking for what you guys want to hear. What do you want to learn about? And everybody came back with multiple different answers, most of which were aggressive versus defensive behaviors and how to breed reticulated pythons. As I am limited to just orally explaining things in the vehicle, I don't have the ability to show you how to do stuff. I'm going to limit to the things that make the most sense to do that with. It seems to me that starting off with what do I do when I get my reticulated python home, the initial general care and management of the animals, as crazy as it sounds, about half of the people that I sell snakes to at shows get home and call me back with some type of a problem because they didn't understand what they needed to do. In the reticulated python industry, there are 2 general methods that people use for temperatures for reticulated pythons. The temperature range being the most important thing, because structurally the cage and the enclosure and all of that doesn't really matter. From a glass aquarium to a plastic tub to a 10 by 10 foot giant massive enclosure, you still have to give the animal the temperature range that is required for that animal to be able to thermoregulate and maintain health. So if you are running in cage heat, either with a radiant heat panel, with heat tape, heat lamp on top of a glass aquarium, whatever method you choose to use, you need to have a 90-degree basking spot. Now, something I want to touch on really quickly is you are going to find 100 people that disagree with me. And what I want to tell you is there are more than one way to skin a cat. I'm going to give you my experience based on the number of animals that I've kept in captivity in the time that I've been doing this, which is a lot. I'm going to tell you what happened when I tried different things and the reason that I came to the information that I'm giving you in my opinion right now. I started out using about an 80-degree cold side and an 88 or 86 or 85 degree basking spot, which is what a lot of people think that you should do with reticulated pythons. And the majority of the animals were perfectly okay with this structure. They thermoregulate, moving from hot spot to cold spot to give their body what it needs to be able to maintain health, to digest the food properly, to prevent respiratory infections and colds and things like that. But what I found was, with an 80-degree cold side and an 85 or 86-degree hot spot, some of my animals weren't happy. They had behavioral issues, they pushed their faces, they just seemed like they weren't okay with it. So in the beginning, I thought, warmer, I need to raise the temperatures, because you think reptiles need to have heat. And I get it, they do, because they are cold-blooded animals and they cannot raise their own temperatures. But they can't lower their own temperatures either without having the ability to do so. So I turned up the heat and the problems got worse. What I found was, when I started lowering the heat, not the basking spot heat, But the cold side of the enclosure, reticulated pythons were hugging that cold side and getting as far away from the heat as possible. So to make a long story short, in the end, when I was using a gradient temperature within the cage heat sources, I finally got down to about 70 degrees on the cold side. What I figured out was a 90-degree basking spot gives the animal the ability to go sit under the heat and very quickly raise its body temperature. But most of the time, they still stay on the cold side. They use the heat to help with the digestion process. And when I think of heat now with reptiles, I think of it as an internal battery. I think that reptiles have an internal battery that charges and runs out of juice over time, and that they use their temperatures or their basking spot to recharge that internal battery. So given the opportunity, they will go sit under the light, they will charge, they will go back and do the things that they want to do in the inside of the enclosure on the cold side. So the cold side, to me, is the place that you give them where they're going to spend the most of their time. If you want to set up an enclosure that has lots of things for them to climb on and spend time on, give them a basking spot. If the enclosure is big enough, give them multiple basking spots, but make sure that they can get down into the low 70s. I stopped having issues behaviorally with the animals pushing and being problematic and even being defensive, emotional issues, when I got the temperatures down below 75 degrees. About 2/3 of the people that I sell a reticulated python to that are not experienced, and I am the guy that sells to new retic people, most of them get home and the snake doesn't act the way or behave the way that it behaved when it was with you at the show. I want you to understand this, and I want you to begin to wrap your heads around the fact that reticulated pythons stop eating and or behave improperly, aggravated or defensive behavior, because they're not happy, because they're not getting something that they need, because they're afraid. So the first thing I ask people when they say, man, this snake is mean, it's trying to bite me, or this snake is not taking food, is temperatures. Do you have your temperatures right? Once I got down into the low 70s, under 75 degrees, between 70 and 75 degrees, I killed about 90 to 95% of the problems that come up when you get a new retic, or when somebody takes home a new animal. And as these customers reach out to me and say, this snake is doing this snake is doing that, the first thing I tell them to do is cool them off. Most of the time, people have the temperatures too high. Something that needs to be discussed is, how do I get an accurate temperature reading? So these little Zoom Med thermometers that stick on the inside of your aquarium do not give accurate measurements. You're lucky to get close. And you can spend hundreds of dollars on digital thermometers that, if you go into the instructions and you open it up, it will tell you that there is a range. And it's generally a 3 to 6 degree range. So the problem with that is, if you're wanting a temperature to be 90 degrees and you're 3 or 6 degrees hotter or colder, guess what? You're not getting the accurate measurement. Therefore, in my opinion, the only way to get an accurate measurement is to use multiple different devices to be able to determine the measurement. I've bought laser temp guns that gave me a 10-degree difference between one gun and another gun. The more expensive one is not always the better one, and I can't give you a name brand that I will tell you is 100% accurate every time, because it doesn't exist. What I will tell you is to get 2 or 3 different types and use them all individually and take the range and go into the middle of what that range is to get an accurate assessment. You can also use thermometers and thermostats, obviously, to give you a range so that you can make an educated decision about what the actual temperature is. High dollar and expensive thermostats that control and regulate when the temperature cuts on and off are not always accurate either. I've gotten a broad spectrum using those as well. So use the thermostat, use backup thermometers, and use laser temp guns to actually measure the basking spot and the animals when they're sitting in the different places in the enclosure. This way you know that you're getting an accurate reading. There is no guessing. You can set your thermostat at 95 degrees if you're getting a 90-degree measurement, and everything will actually do what it needs to do in order for the animal to be able to thermoregulate. We're going to also, with all of these videos, give you the ability to ask questions, and I will answer questions either in the next video or I will answer them in comments whenever we post the video. Communicate with me and let me know what you want to hear, and I'll help you any way that I can. Have a safe holidays, and we'll talk to you soon.